Well, hello. Today we're going to build a game using Snap. The game that I have in mind is something that's loosely based on Zombie Dice, which is a really cool game both for tabletop and also on the iPhone. If you didn't see the video that from Steve Jackson that does their demo, I definitely encourage you to go back to the first entry in the module and go look at their demo. It won't take very long, and it's actually pretty cool. But anyway, let me show you how this adaptation works. I'll start this game running, and what we have is an avatar, which is actually the regular turtle from Snap. And then we also have these three enemies. These are, spheres or balls. And you see that they're color coded. Green means that they're relatively safe, so they're likely to have a brain that a little zombie turtle can eat. Yellow means that they're, a little less likely to have a brain and more likely to have a trap. And red means that they're definitely more likely to have a trap than to actually have a brain inside. Now, the goal of the turtle is to eat as many brains as possible. Every time that our little zombie turtle eats a brain, then the score goes up by one. And whenever we decide it just doesn't look like there's anything more to do, we can always click on the zombie turtle and it will stop. And so that means that we get however many points the score was. So let's try again here. So let's see, we have a green one which is pretty safe, and a couple of yellow ones. So let's eat our green turtle. Oh, it was a trap. We've been shotgunned. Well, that's too bad. Our score was zero. So let's do this another try. There's the green one, of course. Oh, yum, that was a brain. We definitely don't want the red ones. Let's see. We'll get greedy on it was a trap for a shotgun again. But anyway, so that gives you an idea of what the game is like. Okay, so let's now look instead at how to build it. All right, so let me start with the simplest thing, and that is the background. Okay, you see here that our background is actually an image that I borrowed from Steve Jackson Games' website, and that actually is a very easy thing to do. Just simply download the file onto your computer and then drag it over to this area. This is the costumes area of the stage. Okay, so right here we have our avatars. Right here we have the stage. If you click on the stage, it's got no programs, but it does have costumes. And right here we can just drag something in. If you want to have background music, you can also drop it down here, and you can hear that while you play the game. Okay, so that's the background. Okay, now let's look at the program for our avatar, and our avatar has a fairly simple set of scripts. So when the green flag is clicked, all it does is it resets. So it goes to 00, which is in the center of the screen, points in direction 90, which is to the right, and the score is set to zero because that's all we have. Now, one thing that I will point out is that actually showing the score is very simple. You see it right here. In fact, you can move that anywhere you want. That's just a little element that moves around. And the way that we do it is by clicking in the variables, finding score, and then just either selecting it or not. If you select it, let me select it, then it'll show up here. If you unselect it, then it doesn't. So that's a variable that we're showing. That's all that is. Okay, so that's actually very, very easy to do. Okay, now the other thing that this guy does is when it's clicked, right here it is. When we click on it, it will simply say, okay, we stop playing, 3 seconds, and then it pauses the game. The game is stopped. Okay. The other rules simply have to do with movement. So, for example, when the up arrow is pressed, it points in the direction 0 degrees, which is straight up, and then it moves 10 steps. That's it. Okay. The other three directions are very much the same. Now let's look at the enemy. The enemy is actually quite a bit more interesting. Okay. So first thing I want to show you is that the enemy has three different costumes. The way that we build a costume is by clicking on this icon, and then just drawing something here. It doesn't really, I just did a circle. Okay, do this if you want to get a circle. Click here to get a circle instead of an ellipse. Okay. And for example, that could be part of our avatars. I also put in some color to it just by using the bucket paint tool. Okay, and there, that is kind of a Mickey Mouse looking um, avatar. Okay, or rather costume. So we can just do as many of these as we want. I'm actually going to delete it because I don't really want it. What I did was I just built the circles that had the different colors. That was all. Okay. All right. So now back to the script. The first thing I want you to see is just that when we click the green flag, it will initialize itself. Okay. Now the initialize is a block that I made, and here's the block. So the block is actually it's really not that interesting, but it's got a fair amount of code. Okay, so the first thing that we do is we go to an X and Y position that is random. Pick random is a very useful command. Okay, and it's right here under operators, and what it does is it returns a random number. So here we have pick random 1 to 10. If I click on that, I got 7, click on it, got 10, click on it, got 8, click on it, got 1. That's all it does. Okay, so we pick a number between minus 230 and 230 for X, and minus 170 to 170 for Y. How did I get those particular numbers? Actually, I just went to motion and clicked on this so you could see the X position, and then I just moved them around. Okay, so that told me where he was located. Okay, that's it. Um, the other thing that we do is I change dx and dy to be some kind of random value between minus 10 and 10. I have to confess that that's a little dangerous because it could potentially pick 0 and 0 and then it'll never move. But I haven't worried about that. Okay, so that just picks a velocity in the x direction and a velocity in the y direction. I realize now that I call them dx and dy. That's because I'm a math geek and I'm thinking in terms of delta x and delta y from calculus. But your students could simply call it Vx for velocity x, Vy for velocity y, and they would have a pretty good intuition as to what that does. Now, the next thing in here is actually very important, and you get that from variables. You can make a variable, and that just creates something like dx dy, which, by the way, I had to do for this. The other thing you can do is create a script variable. Okay. Now, a script variable, which I call danger, is valid only inside the script. So that means that this variable does not conflict with any other variable called danger. It can't because it's only visible inside the script. So what we'll say here is we'll set danger to some random number between minus 3 and minus 1. So it's either minus 1, minus 2, or minus 3. And then we set the price. That's what you win if you actually eat this particular sphere. The price is set to a random number between danger and 1. So if danger was minus 1, then we pick a number between minus 1 and 1, so that's minus 1, 0, 1. If danger is minus 3, then we pick a number between minus 3 and 1, that's minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, and 1. And so now, what we say is that, intuitively, if the number that we pick, if the price is negative, then it's actually a trap, okay? That's the shotgun. If the price is actually a 0 or 1, then it's a good thing. Okay, it's actually a brain and we can eat it. So the danger here, we check. If the danger is minus 3, oh, this is terrible. So we actually switch to costume danger. That's the red costume. The danger is minus 2, we'll switch to costume warning, which is the yellow one. Danger is minus 1, we'll switch to costume safe. Okay, so that's what initialize me does. It just picks a randomly, whether it is it actually picks a price randomly, which is either a brain or a shotgun. And but first it decides whether it is more likely to be a shotgun or more likely to be a brain, and it colors itself appropriately. Okay, so now let's take a look at this big forever loop. That's what the balls are actually doing all the time. Okay, so the first thing that it does is it glides or it moves smoothly from whatever position it has right now to its position plus dx plus dy. Okay, so dx dy, if you think of it as a vector, is actually the velocity vector saying that's the direction I'm moving in. That's all. That's what this is doing. Okay, so it just moves in that direction. Now the next thing that it does, I'm actually not using this, but it figures out what the distance to the avatar is by using one of these sensing options. And here is distance to, and you can select what do we want. Is it the distance to the mouse? Is it to an avatar? Or is it to one of the other objects like enemy 2 and enemy 3? Okay. Um, I'll tell you why I actually was looking at that later, although, like I said, I'm currently not using it. Okay, so now the next thing is rules here are very important. This one simply says if the absolute value of the x position is greater than 230. Okay, now the x position goes from minus 230 to 230. That's what the screen is. Okay, so if it's smaller than minus 230, it means that we're off the left edge. If it's greater than 230, it means that we're off the right edge. Taking the absolute value, if it's greater in magnitude than 230, then what we need to do is change the direction of the ball so that it bounces, right? And that is as simple as changing the velocity. If it was moving to the left at 3 meters per second, then we need to change it so that it moves to the right at 3 meters per second, and that's just flipping the sign. So we multiply dx by minus 1. The same thing we do for the y position. Okay, so this is just bouncing ball physics. Okay, that's all that is. The next bit, the next if statement right here, that is the actual logic of, oh my god, the avatar, the zombie turtle is eating me. Okay, so I know that the zombie turtle is eating me if I am touching the avatar. Okay, this is what I did earlier. I tried, well, maybe not if I'm touching it. What if the distance to the avatar is less than 25? That's why I was computing this distance to avatar. I changed my mind on that. Originally I did that, and but the reason that I wanted to do that instead of just touching the avatar is because I was afraid that as I was gliding, I would go through it and it wouldn't actually stop. But it turns out that we're moving with such low velocity. It's just a number between minus 10 and 10 that that doesn't happen. So touching is much more elegant. So I like this better. Okay, so we're touching the avatar. That means that the zombie turtle is trying to eat us. There's two possibilities. If the price is less than 0, it means that we're actually a shotgun. We're armed and we're gonna kill the zombie turtle. So in that case, we say it's a trap, and we say that for 5 seconds. The game just kind of pauses and shows you the message. Okay, actually, it doesn't fully pause. The other balls are still moving, but that's kind of cool. And then we actually do pause all. Okay, and the pause all command just stops the game. Done. Okay. Otherwise, oh, so the price was greater than or equal to 0. That means it was actually a prize. It was a brain. So we'll say, yum, we ate brains. Well, I do that for just 1 second. We don't want to wait too long because that would interrupt the gameplay. And the score goes up by 1. And now what we want is, well, this particular, human or whatever the ball has been eaten. And so we want it to disappear. And we want a new one to appear someplace, right? So that there's always 3 that are moving around. Actually, the easiest way to do that is simply to call this block initialize me again. Because what initialize me does, remember, it picks a random location and it picks a random direction. Perfect, right? So for all practical purposes, it's a different one, even though it's actually the same object moving around. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to show you is that we were here with the enemy, and actually let me change something here in the costumes. I wanted to have the safe costume. Okay, what I wanted to show you was that I can actually take an enemy, right click on it and say duplicate, and what that does, it just creates another enemy someplace. Okay, so now there's 4. If I run the game now, then you see that there are 4 zombies. I'm sorry, 4 balls to choose from. We still have just 1 zombie. Okay. The traditional number is 3, but one thing that's very nice is that I can create more enemies just simply by copying or cloning one of the balls. I'm going to get rid of it now. Okay, done. Now, you should wonder about that just for a second, because remember that we're keeping track of the velocity of each zombie, the dx and the dy, in a variable. And if you have dx and dy in a variable, and all the zombies are adding dx and dy, I'm sorry, the balls are adding dx and dy, then they'll all be moving in the same direction. Okay, when you see the game, you certainly don't see that, right? I mean, they're moving in different directions. So what's going on? It's a good thing, but exactly how is that happening? And the reason that that happens is because we built these variables dx and dy, and I'm trying to. Oh, I'm not looking. Yeah, there we go. I gotta click on enemy to see them. Okay, so we clicked on the enemy, and so now we see dx, dy, price, distance to avatar, and score. But when you make a variable, you have a couple of choices. One possibility is to say for all sprites. Okay, that means that this variable is shared by everybody. A good example of that is score. Everybody knows what the score is, okay? And it's just one score. We shouldn't have multiple scores running around in the game. So that would be a variable that's made for all sprites. But some variables we want to make for this sprite only. And a good example of that is dx, dy, and price. Okay, so dx and dy, which is the velocity vector for each particular sprite, that is only for that sprite. Okay, so that's what that button is for. When you create a variable, you can choose, do I want this to be shared by all the sprites, or do I want only this one sprite to know about it? Okay. The other thing is script variable, right? I talked to you about that earlier. You can make a script variable to do things like, well, I'm using a variable, but it's only local to this particular function, for example. So when we had the initialize me block, we built the script variable danger. Okay, so that's a very nice thing to do. And that's a third kind of variable. So we actually have three different kinds of variables. We have shared by everybody, shared only within this sprite, okay, and then there's only within this block. Okay, so when I create a new block like initialize me, I can create a script variable. A better name would have been block variable for this. By the way, if you click on the variable, you can give it a change the name. So instead of danger, you can call it, Will Robinson. Okay, so that's it. Okay, that's the game that we built. Now, I want you to build a game next class period. And if you build a game that is just like this one, I'll be very happy. Okay, this is a fine game. It's I'll be honest, it's not the most fun game to play. You get bored after a while, but it shows everything you need to know to be able to build games with your students. And my goal is simply this: you can give your students the opportunity to build and design their own games, and when they get in trouble, you can help them. Okay, so if you succeed in building this game, you'll be able to do that. But I know that a lot of you are far more artistic than I am, and I'd like to give you some ideas for how you can make this game a lot better. Okay, so let's start with the easy stuff. The zombie turtle. My zombie turtle looks like an arrowhead. Your zombie turtle could look like an actual zombie turtle. Okay, so have some fun. Maybe that would be a nice thing to do. Another thing would be, yeah, those big green, yellow, and red circles are cute, but it might be more fun if they look like humans. Okay, so maybe they should be. Okay, so that's just basic graphics, right? And that's something that you can definitely do and improve on my design. Something else you can do, you can improve the gameplay of this quite a bit. The way the game works right now is the zombie turtle chases the human balls, and eats them or gets shotgunned. Okay, that's very similar to the Zombie Dice actual game, but unlike the game, there's really nothing that would prompt you to stop. Okay, there's nothing that says, okay, so I need to now stop chasing the humans because I'm probably just gonna get shotgunned. So for example, I'd be real tempted to stop when I see three red balls. However, I can do that by just clicking on the zombie turtle. But there's not a big reward. I mean, there's not an incentive for me to do that. Maybe I can just try to eat one, and if I die, I die. After all, it just means game is over. The reason that Zombie Dice is so addictive is because it's competitive. So you play with somebody else, and you take turns. So let's say that I eat two zombies. Okay, I'm sorry, I eat two humans. I'm the zombie. I eat two humans. I'm very happy, but I noticed that there's the remaining humans look heavily armed. So I might stop, and when I do that, the other player gets a turn. Okay, so the other player now goes, and maybe she gets five humans before she decides to stop. Now it's my turn again. Now I have a little pressure on me because I've only got two brains. She's got five brains. I'm going to have to eat as many humans as I can. So maybe I'll take a little bit more risks than I normally would have. When I don't think it's worth taking a risk, then I'll stop, let her have a turn. Okay, so that actually is pretty nice. And by doing that, it means that I now have an incentive to stop. I now have a strategy, and we can do something like the first zombie who gets 10 brains is the winner. Okay, so if my fellow gamer has 9 brains, I'm going to take every risk there is because I'm going to lose anyway, right? So that makes it a little bit more fun. You could actually do that gameplay almost exactly, and really all you need to do to get there is to keep track of two scores instead of one score, and to keep track of, oh, so now Ready Player 1, Ready Player 2. That would be awesome. You can definitely do that. It's well within your skill set, and it would be fun. Okay, that would actually be worthy of Zombie Dice. Anyway, I look forward to seeing what your games are like. And as always, if you run into any troubles, we'll give you a hand. We'll see you on Tuesday.